This sport has helped me so much in my life. I think my jaw is broken, by the way, so.
On God, I was on my knees more than an OnlyFans girl. I was so scared of that big muscular dude that I had to get on my knees and beg for his mercy, bro. That's the only chance I had.
6 inches taller. What? That's insane. He's one of the most skilled fighters on the planet. My brother, as a fucking YouTuber, went 6 rounds with him in a fight with a broken jaw and rolled ankle.
So you don't know, but I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised.
Right.
I'm a little fucked up, but will you take care of me forever and ever?
Breaking. Jake Paul announces retirement in post-fight interview after Anthony Joshua loss. Jake's voice cracked as he admitted he's getting hit in the face every single day, a stunning confession of defeat. Anthony Joshua's pressure was relentless, forcing Paul into a public surrender that feels less like retirement and more like humiliation.
I'm retiring from boxing. I'm getting hit in the face every...
Eddie Hearn's words cut through the noise. Even he admits British fight fans wanted the biggest fight, but hints Jake Paul's career might be done. Saying if that is the last we see of him, he's had a great career feels like damage control after Anthony Joshua exposed Paul's limits and forced this early exit.
Obviously for British fight fans, because we've got a chance to make the biggest fight in boxing, but you know, if that is the last we see of him, he's had a great career. I doubt it, but you know, it's always best to come into retirement to make sure someone pays you to come out of retirement. But if that's his lot, much respect to him.
Seeing Jake Paul in tears after that Anthony Joshua loss tells you everything. The man who once talked big was reduced to emotion and regret. After taking punishment and finally being stopped, Paul's retirement announcement doesn't sound like confidence. It sounds like someone realizing his limitations under real boxing pressure.
But I'm scared. I'm just like, what?
Vidal Riley's comment lands like a reality check because it perfectly sums up what we saw when Jake Paul stepped in against Anthony Joshua. Paul didn't actually box him the way a true pro should. Instead, he tried to scrape and gamble his way through the rounds. That's not skill, that's avoidance. Against a man of Joshua's caliber, trying to survive rather than engage simply exposes your limitations. This wasn't clever tactic. It was proof that when the gloves are laced up for real and someone with genuine boxing IQ is in front of you, Paul's hit-and-hope game plan collapses. Joshua didn't just beat him, he outclassed him in every meaningful facet of the fight, forcing Paul to rely on anything but true boxing to stay upright.
What else are you supposed to do? You're clearly not going to defeat me if you decide to box me. So you have to use something else.
Eddie Hearn's words sound polite, but listen closely and you can hear the concession behind them. When he says Paul had to do what he had to do to survive, what he's really describing is a fighter being overwhelmed by the sheer quality of Anthony Joshua. Joshua's veteran precision and heavy hands pushed Paul onto that back foot, forcing him into survival mode rather than allowing him to fight. Surviving is not competing, it's a boxer getting out of trouble, and that's exactly what Paul was doing for large stretches of this fight. Anthony Joshua systematically dissected him, showing that when the gloves go on for a legitimate heavyweight contest, Paul is simply out of his league.
And when they're rugby tackling you, but he had to do what he had to do to survive, and he did that, so...
Spencer Oliver's praise reads nicely on paper, but after watching how Jake Paul was completely exposed by Anthony Joshua, it feels like wishful thinking rather than reality. Yes, Paul brought eyes, there's no disputing that, but bringing attention and delivering in a real heavyweight boxing match are two very different things. Against someone like Joshua, Paul's offense looked sporadic, his defense looked fractured, and his stamina evaporated under real pressure. Calling him a serious talent now feels like trying to soften the blow of a truly dominant performance by Joshua. In truth, what Paul delivered in that ring was a reminder of just how vast the gulf can be between social media hype and actual sporting substance.
It's not just that he's a big personality and he sells fights so well and he's a big character and the press conferences, the build-up to fights and what he delivers in the ring. The guy is a serious talent and he'll be missed when he's retired. That is...
Carl Fracke's breakdown here cuts to the heart of what we actually saw in that ring. Paul wasn't cleverly evading Joshua's power, he was pinned, sitting with his guard up and taking punches like someone overwhelmed rather than someone in control. Fracke is basically pointing out that Paul didn't adapt, didn't throw enough back, and looked genuinely hurt, a rare moment where a commentator's eye matches what the fans saw live. Against a true heavyweight like Anthony Joshua, that's not tactical sparring, that's damage limitation, and it showed. Paul's guard wasn't a strategic shell, it was the only thing between him and the canvas until the knockout finish.
He should have either grabbed on, took a knee, or at least threw a bit more back. He was sitting back with his guard up, taking punches. It looked messy. It looked like he was under attack, and he was hurt.
Frock here is doubting the sincerity of Paul's retirement announcement, and honestly, it's a fair point given the drama around this fight. After being knocked out by Anthony Joshua in the 6th round, it makes sense that Paul's announcement could be about headlines and leverage rather than a true end to his career. Frock's skepticism isn't just noise. It reflects how Paul's storytelling has often served his brand more than his boxing record. Now that the punishment has been documented and public, calling it retirement feels premature. It's absolutely possible Paul is angling for a payday, a never-say-die narrative, or another big money bout rather than genuinely walking away from the sport.
This retirement, I'm not sure if it's genuine. Maybe it is, but I don't know what he's going to do now he's retired. But the fact of the matter is, he's announced his retirement. He's either trying to leverage for more money, putting himself in position, so he's got people begging for him to come out, or he's actually genuinely going to retire. Not sure what he's going to do.
Johnny Nelson's voice here offers a dose of realism to this whole retirement saga. He's basically saying we've seen this pattern before. A big name announces retirement only to dip back in when the spotlight or the money calls. After losing badly to Anthony Joshua, for Paul to step away for good would be surprising given his career trajectory. Nelson's reference to the boy that cried wolf is a clear suggestion that Paul's exit could end up as another chapter of talk rather than a genuine goodbye. Paul's never shied from headlines, but in real boxing terms, lasting 6 rounds against Joshua and then claiming retirement feels like damage control more than closure.
He's retired, he's not going to do it again. We've seen it before, and I'm quite sure the common word's going to be the boy that cried wolf. I think in reality...
Nelson's take here is painfully direct. Jake Paul mugged himself off by talking big and then boxing scared. That line about not wanting a big on my face basically revealed Paul's mindset before he set foot in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Instead of backing it up, he boxed like a man trying to avoid punishment, and that facade collapsed under real pressure. There's a brutal honesty in that observation. Paul's pride was hurt more by his own pre-fight bravado than by Joshua's fists. When you come in talking bravely and then spend the night trying not to eat those punches, the narrative flips, and in this case it flipped hard against him.
I don't want a big on my face. I've got to get a job done here. So after the things he said the last time, he knows he probably mugged himself off. I think that probably hurt him more than anything, hurt his pride.
Anthony Joshua's own words here tell you exactly how he viewed that fight. Joshua tried to shut Jake down at 100 miles per hour, forcing Paul to dance and circle rather than stand and trade. This wasn't Paul's comfortable playground of social media-fueled fights. This was elite-level ring sense forcing him into survival mode. Paul's movement looked reactionary because it was reactionary. He had no answer to real pressure from Joshua. This strategic pressure is why Paul ended up fatigued and retreating rather than executing his usual game plan. In essence, Joshua's focus and intent dictated the fight's pace and forced Paul to move around the ring rather than prove he belonged in a true heavyweight confrontation. The result was inevitable, and Paul's retirement talk after such a performance feels like an attempt to rewrite a clear sporting truth. Anthony Joshua's own words here tell you exactly how he viewed that fight. Joshua tried to shut Jake down at 100 miles per hour, forcing Paul to dance and circle rather than stand and trade. This wasn't Paul's comfortable playground of social media-fueled fights. This was elite-level ring sense forcing him into survival mode. Paul's movement looked reactionary because it was reactionary. He had no answer to real pressure from Joshua. This strategic pressure is why Paul ended up fatigued and retreating rather than executing his usual game plan. In essence, Joshua's focus and intent dictated the fight's pace and forced Paul to move around the ring rather than prove he belonged in a true heavyweight confrontation. The result was inevitable, and Paul's retirement talk after such a performance feels like an attempt to rewrite a clear sporting truth.
At 100 miles an hour, or I would have gone on the back foot. So Jake decided to move around the ring, and I decided to put the pressure on. What I could have done better.
Frank Warren's analysis tries to soften the blow, praising the body shots and toughness. But in the context of what happened to Jake Paul against Anthony Joshua, it actually highlights how one-sided that contest felt. When someone like Joshua lands meaningful shots at will on a fighter, it's not just good bodywork, it's control. Paul wasn't the man dictating the pace or impressing in a vacuum. He was constantly reacting, trying to avoid the next big salvo rather than setting the tempo. Naming past wins doesn't change the reality that Joshua's power and experience, 28 wins with 25 knockouts, overwhelmed Paul's approach in Miami. Joshua isn't no slouch, he's a legitimate heavyweight force. And for Paul to come off looking like someone who got tagged cleanly and eventually stopped exposes the real gulf between a seasoned champion and a crossover star. This isn't narrative building, it's a boxing truth play-by-play, Real punchers in true heavyweight contests don't just get respect, they earn it decisively, and that's exactly what we saw.
And I'll tell you what his body shots were good. He was catching him with body shots, and I think he hurt him. And Joe's no slouch. I mean, he's a tough guy. He's on a roll. He's a former world champion. He's beaten, 3 or 4 of his last fights, all top 10 ranked fighters, and done it in style.
When Jai Opetaia talks about adapting and having too much ammunition, it's a perfect blueprint for what Anthony Joshua did to Jake Paul. Joshua did adapt, switching angles, controlling distance, and forcing Paul into positions where his movement and scraps were answers to questions nobody asked. That's the difference between a good fighter and a great one, the ability to impose will, to adjust in real time and make an opponent abandon their plan. Paul came in with his usual bravado and evasive style, but against Joshua's size, skill and mental pressure, that plan fell apart. Talk of ammunition isn't just fancy phrasing, it's a reminder that Joshua had tools Paul simply didn't have: power, timing, and ring IQ. When that combination meets someone who thrives more on showmanship than structured boxing fundamentals, the result is predictable: adaptation wins, and delusion loses. The science of sport isn't friendly to fairy tales, and Joshua proved that with every jab and every combination that pushed Paul further onto the back foot before the knockout finish.
No, on points, bro, crazy.
How did you have it?
I had him up, bro, convincingly. Awesome fight. Hey, science of the sport. This guy adapts. I knew it.
How did you know he was going to win? Why?
He's got too much ammunition. He's southpaw, orthodox, on the back foot. That's what changes good from great, is knowing how to adapt. Back foot.
John Fury's praise of heart and belief sounds great on paper, but context matters. And against Anthony Joshua? Heart alone doesn't win fights. Yes, Paul showed grit and resilience, but toughness without elite boxing fundamentals and championship experience is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Joshua isn't just strong-minded, he's been in wars where skill mattered as much as courage, and that's where Paul's limitations became glaringly obvious. Fury's words reflect the romantic ideal of persistence, but boxing doesn't reward heart stories when ringside officials are scoring rounds or slapping on stoppages. Paul's belief in himself is admirable, but belief doesn't negate a broken jaw, or the systematic dismantling by a former world champion who knows where to land the clean shots that matter. In this fight, heart was visible, but so was the truth. Anthony Joshua's caliber exposed just how far social media fame can carry someone before the real sport catches up.
Courage, heart and determination. And his will to win. He's got world-class balls.
Now that we've seen the dust settle and the raw truth of what went down in Miami, there's no sugarcoating it. Anthony Joshua delivered a brutal reality check to Jake Paul, stopping him in the 6th round and sending the YouTuber crashing to the canvas multiple times before the knockout finish. Joshua's performance reminded the world why elite boxing isn't about hype or followers, it's about skill, power, and fight-to-win mentality, and he showed all of that with authority tonight. Despite Paul's bravado and talk of retirement, the reaction from fans and fighters alike makes clear this wasn't just a loss. It was a statement that separates true boxing champions from social media stars. And while Paul now talks about healing and future fights, one question remains for viewers. Do you think he should call it a day or come back hungrier and prove he deserves a place in real heavyweight competition? Let us know what you think in the comments below.